Pete Buttigieg, otherwise known as Mayor Pete, had a tremendous statement on the major screw up by the Trump administration, accidentally having a journalist on their group chat about war plans. So I want to play that for you. It's just a couple minutes long. Then I want to show you another related clip that's really interesting. Then I'll share my thoughts on this. Let's get into it together.
I try not to jump in with a take on everything or comment on everything we see in the news of the day, but what we learned about today is truly incredible. The U.S. Secretary of Defense, the National Security Advisor, the Vice President of the United States, and other very senior, very powerful Trump White House officials, it turns out, discussed highly classified war plans, not only on an unclassified channel, but accidentally and randomly, it seems, including a journalist. And to see this administration claiming that it cares about competence and merit, and then be responsible for an epic fuck-up like this, demonstrates that these are not serious people. I was an intelligence officer for about 7 years in the U.S. Navy Reserve, and I occasionally handled highly classified information during my time in the cabinet as well. It can be hard to explain just how much goes into keeping that information safe. It is only available to people with a security clearance and a need to know. It's only discussed in certain facilities that are hardened to make sure that they don't have the same vulnerability to surveillance as most places. And importantly, you only ever use classified systems to discuss classified information. So America needs answers on why an unclassified commercially available app was used, and even more importantly, how some of the most powerful people in this country didn't know that they accidentally included a journalist while they were discussing classified war plans that they had yet to authorize and execute. This is not something that's just important for its own sake. I know Americans who lost their lives because of intelligence failure. This kind of intelligence failure calls the question on whether there is any place for merit or competence in this administration at all. Because if they're not highly serious consequences for this level of screw up, then it will make clear that all of the bluster about merit that you hear about from this White House is just bullshit. We deserve so much better. It is getting clearer by the day that the people in charge of the American government cannot keep the American people safe. Got to do it.
And Pete Buttigieg saying that these are not serious people, to me, is the best way to say that. That's absolutely the perfect way to sum up this screw up, to sum up this administration, to sum up the people that Donald Trump surrounds himself with. And to see just how unserious they are, let me show you this next clip.
I'll tell you something. This is a trip.
Give us 1 second.
We had.
Good.
I'll tell you something. This is a trip we've had circled on the calendar from the beginning. The Indo-Pacific, shifting priorities to make sure we're deterring threats in the future. President Trump's been focused on that. Reestablishing the warrior ethos, rebuilding our military, and ultimately reestablishing deterrence is critically important. And so we're out here to talk to our commanders and, more importantly, meet with the troops all across the Indo-Pacific, and then our allies and partners too, who are going to be a critical part of ensuring the future in this region is free. And so we're glad to be here. It's a beautiful day. Had a full work day on the plane. Now we've got a full work day here as well, and looking forward to it.
Mr. Secretary,
one question?
Can you share how your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in the Atlantic, and were those details classified?
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign because of the skill and courage of our troops. I've monitored it very closely from the beginning, and you see, we've been managing 4 years of deferred maintenance under the Trump administration. Our troops, our sailors were getting shot at as targets our ships couldn't sail through. And when they did shoot back, it was purely defensively or at shacks in Yemen. President Trump said, no more. We will reestablish deterrence, we will open freedom of navigation, and we will ultimately decimate the Houthis, which is exactly what we're doing as we speak from the beginning, overwhelmingly.
Why were those details shared on Signal, and how did you learn that a journalist was privy to the targets, the types of weapons used?
I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
That's it.
This guy, Pete Hegseth, is such a douche. And it's amazing with these right-wingers. It's almost like they're just made in a factory somewhere to, and they just turn the dial all the way up to the highest level of smirk because they're always just so damn smirky. And he's chuckling as the reporter is asking these questions. And we'd expect nothing less from the Trump administration, but of course, they're going to push this off onto the journalist instead of them taking some responsibility for their screw up. Of course, Donald Trump is never going to take any responsibility if, he's already said he didn't know anything about this, and maybe he didn't. I mean, he's such a moron that they probably keep him out of as much of this as they possibly can. During his first administration, ICE was going to do a raid, and they purposely didn't let Donald Trump know about it because they knew he would blab about it before they actually did it. So they probably do keep him out of a lot of this. But just once you would like to see these creeps just take responsibility. Say, yeah, we made a mistake, but it won't happen again. We will assure you that it won't happen again. But it's always somebody else did it. It's somebody else's fault. It's never my fault. It's the woke mob. It's the liberal media. In this case, it's a journalist that was peddling conspiracy theories about things that aren't actually conspiracies or conspiracy theories. But this is one of the infuriating things about this administration is that they'll never take responsibility for anything or ever admit that they're wrong. And that's coming from the top down, coming from Donald Trump all the way down, because he always blames someone else and never takes responsibility. But the flip side of that is Trump is a moron surrounded by morons and incompetent people. And that's the one saving grace for us. They'll never be able to accomplish all of the horrible stuff that they want to do because they are idiots. And Mayor Pete pointed that out just by speaking. Pete Hegseth points that out himself. And that's really the thing that I think is going to save us as a country if this guy doesn't bumble us into some kind of a major war. But the one thing that will save us as a country, two things, the courts and the fact that the Trump administration is completely incompetent. If they had more competent people within the administration, then it would be terrifying. But it's slightly less terrifying because they're idiots. But let me know what you think about this. Do you agree with what Mayor Pete Buttigieg has to say about this screw up? It's just unbelievable to me. Let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. This is Chris on Culture, and I'll see you in the next video.